morning, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of our London interviews. And we're delighted today to be speaking with Corey Ranslem, who's CEO of Dryad Global, who's our LSW maritime security and risk intelligence partner. Now, Corey has more than 27 years experience, having worked with ports, cargo lines, cruise lines, and large yachts. A veteran of the US Coast Guard, he holds an MBA in international business and is a recognized expert in the US Federal Court in Maritime Security. Now, as we all know, this is a challenging time for the shipping industry, which is facing growing geopolitical instability. And as shipping increasingly embraces digitalization and technology, the risk of cyber attacks is increasing and rising too. And with mariners and analysts working together, Dryad Global's team brings its deep experience and expertise gained from decades in government and defense sectors to enable maritime companies to develop resilient cybersecurity plans and robust infrastructure. And Corey, it's great having you on the podcast today. You and I have known each other for many, many years, and I know you've been a staunch supporter of LISW, but welcome to today's podcast, Corey.
Thanks, Sean. This is awesome. This is really an honor to be a part of this podcast, but also part of London International Shipping Week. It is one of our favorite conferences just because of the way it's been set up, but by the number of people that attend and just the diversity in the industry. I think it's probably one of the best conferences in the world. So thanks for allowing us to be a part of it.
No, not a problem. I'm just sort of continue on that little theme there before we go into the sort of the hard questions, really, I suppose. But, LSW, it is about bringing the community in. And I think really when you're looking at a time of uncertainty at the moment, shipping is agile, it will continue to grow and thrive and prosper through these difficult times. But having an event like LSW where you have this melting pot of knowledge, expertise and opinion, now that's good for shipping, isn't it, really? I think that's going to be good in September for shipping to be able to tap into all of it.
Absolutely, Sean. It is such a diverse group of people. And I've seen this grow over the years. We were just talking about that I went to the very second LISW and just to see the evolution and change that's happened. And now you have shipping companies that are there. You have financial institutions, you have law firms, you have service providers. It's such a diverse global community that brought together for basically a week in London. But the way it's set up is you really get the opportunity to have some phenomenal one-on-one conversations. I know last year coming out of LISW, we had a 4-page list of follow-ups and conversations. And
wow.
It was just a great experience for us. And this year we're bringing a bigger team across. We have clients that are going to be there, potential and prospective clients, partners. So it's just an incredible opportunity to be able to really meet and connect with the global shipping industry in one location.
Now, you've come in and we're very, very proud to be partnering with you. And certainly we've been working with you for many, many years, but very much on the maritime security and risk intelligence side. But could you just tell our listeners really a little bit more about Dryad Global and what the business element that you're in and really where your focus is as a company?
Sure. So Dryad Global is actually been around since the kind of early to mid 2000s when piracy first started. The company was brought together to really address that threat. As that threat evolved, the company looked at the internal skill set and said, wow, we have a really good internal skill set in being able to provide what we call risk intelligence information to the industry. So piracy was waning at the time, but there were a number of other issues that were happening around the world. Always where the shipping industry is facing geopolitics. That, has always been a factor that shipping companies face. So Dryad really evolved to look at how can we really provide intelligence to the fleet managers, to shipping companies on what's happening so that they have better information to make decisions about where they want to send their ships globally. So the company has really evolved into, I think, a leadership role in the industry in providing what I would consider the best risk intelligence globally. And we really look, Sean, to answer the question to our clients when there's an incident that takes place. For us, it's not just about putting a dot on the map, but being able to answer the question for our clients of, does this event matter or not matter to you? So that's a really interesting focus of our intelligence team, and we have analysts scattered globally. So that's been the primary focus of the company. Over the last year, we've also looked at what are some of the emerging threats and issues that global shipping is going to be facing. And we really looked at our expertise as we have a number of technical developers in-house that develop and manage and maintain our software and our API feeds, that we looked at cybersecurity or cyber issues of really being kind of an up-and-coming issue that the maritime industry and specifically global shipping is going to need to deal with. So we've worked over the last year with a couple of partners and internally to develop a set of tools to help shipping companies with their cyber defense. So we really have two silos of business, our risk intelligence, which has been a great legacy business for us, but now also looking at cyber defense and how we can work with global shipping companies to deploy tools to protect their vessels globally. Because honestly, Sean, how you look at protecting a ship is so much different than how you look at protecting a bank or an office building or an insurance company. Ships are very different. So there's a different set of tools that you need to look at applying to help our customers mitigate that issue.
When you look at the industry, and I want to come on in a minute to really drill down into what those sort of the big issues are facing shipping, but when you look at the global shipping industry itself, how prepared is it for cyber attacks and what have you? I mean, you hear these sort of horror stories coming up, every now and again, but is shipping in its entirety, is it really still falling short of what it should be doing?
That's an excellent question. And from what we've seen, it really spans the gamut of when you look at preparedness. Is we have looked at, different shipping companies that are very well prepared. And it's interesting that as we've seen the companies that are very well prepared, they're the ones that have suffered potential issues and attacks in the past. So they understand what just the financial, but the business ramifications are from that. And then we've seen a slew of other companies that are not prepared. And it's interesting as we look at kind of global preparedness across multiple industries, the shipping industry globally seems to be about 5 to 10 years behind in some respects than other industries when it comes to looking at just recognizing and then looking at how do we mitigate these particular, coming cyber issues. That's where, in our opinion, Sean, where the new war is going to be fought is going to be on the digital front, on the cyber front, because it's so much easier that I don't have to deploy people all over the world to inflict chaos. I can be in an office building as long as I have internet connectivity and inflict, a high degree of chaos from one location pretty cost effectively. So that's one of the things we've really looked at as a coming potential, pretty substantial risk that we believe is facing the global shipping and just overall the global maritime.
And I think, when you look at the impact that geopolitics has had on shipping, with the sort of cessation of vessel movements through the Red Sea because of the Houthi attacks and what have you, and the way that the whole atmosphere out there in global politics is changing, shipping has to be prepared for all of that. And I think that's it. That's a sort of key element there. When you look at the global risk landscape, what concerns you, Corey, really, and as a company, what concerns you, and what should shipping really be keeping an eye out for when you look at that sort of global risk landscape, the change in all of that?
One of the interesting changes, Sean, that we've seen over the past few years, and for us, it really started with the Russia-Ukraine conflict. We saw shipping start to take center stage as part of a geopolitical conflict that we really hadn't seen to that level in the past. And as that conflict has evolved, we've seen direct attacks on ships. We've seen that now continue to play out, as you mentioned, in the Red Sea with the Houthis. That's one of our concerns globally, is you see geopolitical instability. If there's a maritime component to it, is global shipping, is commercial shipping going to become a center point for a potential attack? Because shipping is vulnerable, right? Like the crew members who are on board those ships, they took a job because they like to be at sea and want to be part of the maritime industry. They didn't take a job because they wanted to carry guns and protect ships as they went through different parts of the world. So it's been just an interesting dynamic change over the last 5 years that we've seen shipping really thrust into the forefront of conflicts. And I'm hoping that that's something that doesn't continue. But like I said, shipping is very vulnerable when it comes to that. And it's potentially a very easy and soft target, as we've seen play out over the last couple of years now with the issues in the Red Sea.
And that's really a key point there, really, Corey, because I mean, when you look at also the different nationalities on board, the responsibilities they have, the training they might have or might not have as far as this is concerned, and then they are basically sitting on a very, very expensive bit of asset that not only has very expensive cargo attached to it, but you've got pollution issues that might come as a result of an incident that might happen. What needs to change really with this? Because this is an opportunity for the industry to really, really start to, put its own house in order when it comes to cybersecurity. But what are the opportunities of this, and what are the challenges when it comes to sort of providing cybersecurity for a ship? Because as you say, it's not like anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we recommend is that you really kind of set this up in steps if you're a shipping company. When you talk about cyber specifically, the first thing that we recommend to our clients and even potential clients is to really take a look at a top-down vulnerability assessment of your shoreside operations, of your shipboard operations, and really work to say, where are our cyber vulnerabilities or potential vulnerabilities? And that's really a great starting point to do that initial cyber survey and to say, okay, where are the points that we could be the weakest, that we need help? And that really a great first step, because then that helps you as a fleet manager, as a shipping company, put a plan together and a budget together to address those. And when you do those vulnerability assessments, a lot of times people find that a number of things that they recognize as vulnerabilities are fairly easy to mitigate with just some changes in behavior. So it's not always a big, expensive endeavor for people to say, oh, I'm going to do this survey. Now I have to plan to put millions and millions of pounds in my budget to be able to mitigate this. And that's not always the case. So we always try to start with the survey and work. What are some of the simple problems that could be corrected cost effectively, and then work on a budget for some of the bigger issues. And some of those things can be done over the scope of a year, 2, 3 years, depending on what those vulnerabilities are. But ships are very unique when it comes to cyber protection, that they have limited bandwidth, they have limited compute power. And a lot of the solutions that we see that are commercially available today when it comes to cybersecurity just don't work on a ship. We've tried working with different partners in the past and testing and have found that they just don't work in the shipboard environment. And that's why we've looked at, with the partner we're working with today, have built tools that will work in that low bandwidth environment of a ship with, limited computing power, and even solutions that will work on board a ship if they don't have any communication at all. When a ship is at sea, and you're in a storm in, 20 to 30 foot seas, you may not get reliable satellite communication because of weather, movement of the ship. So you have to look at, how do you protect this asset, whether they're connected to the internet or not, when it comes to cybersecurity. So it's a very, very unique and interesting challenge for the maritime industry.
That's a fair point, actually, and I think we've heard that when talking to some of the communication providers. Ships can, get out of contact with the satellites and all the rest of it. You're exactly right on that. But I think also the role of the crew in all of this, is it also about changing the mindset? I think if you go back 10 years or so, when we talked about cybersecurity, don't bring a USB stick on board, I think people are sort of getting that message. But there's bigger messages now that need to be sort of pushed home to those on board ship. But are the seafarers getting a bit of a change of mindset with regards to what they need to do and why cybersecurity is important now?
I think from some perspectives, again, just like everything in shipping, there are seafarers who are understanding this more, and there are seafarers that are not understanding this. And the crew training and the time spent to be able to train seafarers is very important. But when you look at the number of training requirements that seafarers have just for their day-to-day qualifications, just to do their job, is absolutely overwhelming. So to be able to add more to that sometimes is difficult. So we try to do it in a way where we try to develop solutions that are going to protect the vessel and the crew members, and training that's pretty easy. And as we've seen just over the past year, Sean, that the complexity of cybersecurity attacks, and not just in shipping, but in all industries around the world, the complexity of those attacks has changed tremendously as we're seeing artificial intelligence being integrated into that attack vector now. So that's a really interesting change. And we're going to continue to see that change and evolve pretty rapidly. The solutions that might have worked yesterday when it comes to mitigating these issues on board a ship aren't necessarily going to work tomorrow. So you have to really look at how can we continue to evolve this to look at that future threat, which is very much going to involve AI on both sides. It's going to involve AI on the mitigation and the protection strategy, but also on the threat strategy and the attack strategy on the other side. So the world is changing rapidly when it comes to cyber. And we'll have this conversation now, Sean, and then a few months down the road, when we get to September, that all could change again. It's mind-boggling how quickly some of these things are changing.
I think what you're saying there, Corey, which is quite staggering, really, the use of AI on the threat side there, that sort of rams home if ever there was a message that, this is a continuous process that shipping companies need to be doing and need to be, fully embracing to keep in touch with it. But I think shipping companies would also get pressure from their customers. All elements within the shipping supply chain will get pressure from their own customers as well, won't they?
Absolutely. So if you see that there's an incident, let's just take a hypothetical for instance. Say that a ship is attacked and this cyber attack incapacitates the vessel for a week. Well, what does that do to their schedule, to their delivery? And if you start to look at, well, sometimes with cyber attacks, especially on board a ship, it may not be out of commission for a week. It may be 10 days. It may be 2 weeks. It may be longer, because in some respects, you may actually have to replace hardware on board if there is an attack. So you start to add up the costs of, well, what are the costs for delays or missed port calls or all of these other factors that shipping companies figure in? And it starts to get fairly expensive. We've done just a couple of cursory studies internal in our company and looked at what is the cost to protect a vessel vice what's the cost for remediation and mitigation. And from what we've seen from incidents and other industries, it's a factor of 10.
Wow.
So at least. So if you look at, hey, what's it going to cost me to mitigate this? It may be 10 times what the original cost was to put the protection in place. And now, again, all protection isn't 100%. And one of the things that we're looking at is how do we look at not only the protection piece, but the insurance piece? Because I think that's extremely important, is we can deploy the best technology to help protect a ship and a shipping company. But we're looking at, we also need to have insurance part of that, so that if they're doing everything right and there's still an incident, which is a possibility, that you have this insurance backstop that's going to help you kind of mitigate through these issues. And if you do have the protection in place, the time to mitigate that goes down tremendously. You have a very quick recovery on the other side in comparison to not having any protection at all.
Reminds me of a comment many years ago by a prominent ship owner at the time when questioned about, the investment he's outlaying in, improving, safety and what have you, and anti-pollution on board his fleet, and he said, well, if you think that's expensive, try having an accident. And you're exactly right. The implications are significant. But I think when you look at, from your experience, Corey, and the experience of Dryad, how are the major shipping companies, how well are they doing when it comes to cyber hygiene? Is the industry doing a good job? Do you think? Is it starting to understand?
I think we're at the point on the kind of the scale, if you look at, hey, everything from we're just not going to pay attention to this to full protection in place and countermeasures. I think the shipping industry is somewhere just outside of the middle.
Right.
I've seen a lot of shipping companies now really start to recognize that this is a potential issue, that this is an issue that they need to start looking at and dealing with. We're kind of at the point where a lot of companies now are recognizing the problem and saying, okay, there's an issue here. How do we start to look at this to protect our shipping assets, our shoreside operations? And then you have other shipping companies that are spending millions of dollars to put protection in place for their vessels. And those are the ones, like I said before, are usually the companies who have experienced some sort of cyber issue or cyber attack and realize it's very costly when it comes to trying to mitigate that, or if there's an issue or an accident as part of that. And so I think we're at the point where the industry is really starting to recognize that this is an issue that we need to look to start dealing with. And it's difficult, right? Like if we deploy cyber protection for a ship and that ship doesn't have any incidents, it's sometimes hard at the end of the year for the company security officers, for the IT and security folks that we work with to go back from a budget standpoint to say, well, we need to continue this budget item. And, they get a little pushback occasionally because it's like, well, nothing has ever happened. So why do we need to keep spending on this? And that's part of the, sometimes the dichotomy of the problem is that we have to continue to look at, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's the protection that we're providing. Here are the things that we're doing and the threats that we've seen. So some of the things that we do is not just provide that protection, but also provide the intelligence behind that. Here's the threats we're seeing. Here's what we've stopped, what we've mitigated, what we've looked at, so that a shipping company can see, okay, this is worth our time and capital investment to be able to do this, to protect our vessels.
Before I just ask you a little bit about LISW in the week itself and what you're going to be getting up to, just finishing off on this theme here, looking ahead, we've already touched on the fact that things are changing so quickly in shipping and geopolitics and what have you. How do you expect maritime risk to change throughout the rest of the year? And also, what recommendations do you have for the shipping industry to prepare for that?
So we're really, I think, going to be facing, from a risk intelligence perspective, we're going to be facing, I think, a lot of geopolitical issues throughout 2025. And then we're part of the way into the year now when we're having this discussion. And we really feel that the geopolitical issues are going to be a real headwind for the shipping industry, as you have just a number of things happen across the globe that I think shipping companies are really going to have to look to kind of plan and be resilient and understand the geopolitics and things that are happening globally, not just in hotspots, the Red Sea or the Far Eastern Mediterranean, but just other parts of the world. And what does that look like from a risk perspective? And I think that's going to be the biggest thing that we're going to face. And hopefully we're going to see some resolution this year to some of the conflicts that have been going on over the past few years as well. From a cyber perspective, I think the industry is going to continue to see the number and types of it. The number of attacks are going to go up against shipping, and the complexity of those attacks, I think, is also going to continue to evolve over this year. We're going to see just a lot of interesting things that I think are going to play out over the coming months.
That's a start warning there, really, but I think it's very much a realistic one, I think. So looking forward to London Shipping Week. We'll have the whole world descending on London in September. Decision makers from all around the world hungry to talk about and debate about a lot of these key issues, a lot of the issues that we've talked about today, Corey. So what are you going to be up to during the week? Not only yourself, but also with Dryad. Presumably you'll be holding an event during the week as well, but also attending loads of other events, presumably as well during the week.
Absolutely. This is going to be a great time for not just myself, but we have a number of people on our team that are going to be part of London International Shipping Week. We are going to be holding a seminar on the Tuesday of London International Shipping Week. And we're doing something really different this year, Sean. We're looking at really dividing the seminar up into a couple of parts. The first part of the seminar, we're going to really kind of hone in on what you just asked me about, current threats, what's happening, what do we need to be paying attention to from the perspective of global shipping. And then we're going to take a little bit of a coffee break. And the second part, we're going to be talking about solutions. So the first part, what are those threats? What are the vulnerabilities? What are we facing globally? And then solutions are going to be the second part of that seminar. So it's going to be really interesting, as I don't like to just say, okay, here's the problem. Thanks for coming, everybody. Grab a cup of coffee and a biscuit on your way out. To be able to really dig into those solutions and give our clients that are going to be there, potential clients, the industry, to be able to ask some hard questions of the experts that are going to be a part of that panel to say, hey, we want to be able to dive into these solutions. How do we do this? What do we need to do? And that's what we're going to be doing from the perspective of our company. But we are also going to be all over the city of London. We have already started to put our calendars together of the different seminars and events that we want to be a part of. We're really excited about Wednesday at the IMO. That is always a great day where you kind of get everybody together in one location. And there's just a lot of really good seminars that I've seen that are already posted on the calendar. So I think it's going to be a very busy week for us and our team. And we're going to get our steps in this year, Sean, in London. I'm going to be all over the city and between buses and the taxis and the tube.
Yeah.
It's going to be a busy week. We may have to take a couple of days of holiday after London International Shipping Week just to relax.
Well, it really is all about getting in training, soft shoes and everything, and being prepared for it. But your event sounds fascinating there as well. And I think really splitting it in there where you're identifying the issue and coming up with the solutions. London Shipping Week is all about that blue sky thinking so people can go away with the solutions that they can start to focus in on and on this and a number of other issues. Corey, just wanted to say thank you so much indeed for your time today. It's been absolutely fascinating. My goodness me, things are changing so quickly in your part of the industry, and certainly there'll be a lot there that you'll be able to contribute to, I think, in the debate in the run-up and also during LISW25 in September. But thank you very much indeed for your time today. Thank you very much to Dryad Global for your support of London International Shipping Week. And we look forward to seeing you during the week and also at your event as well. But thank you very much indeed for your time today, sir.
Thanks, Sean. This has been great. I always enjoy speaking with you and hopefully providing our expertise where we can help. And we are very much looking forward to a great conference this year. We're just excited to be a partner and a sponsor. So thank you very much.
No, that's great. Thanks, Corey.